So today we're going to be talking about our self-love journeys. I know that oftentimes we forget about our self-care and to even go deeper into that self-love path. And so that's what we're really going to focus on today, knowing that we just had Valentine's Day. And oftentimes it's a day for love, to celebrate love. And I want to invite you all to remember our own self-love as the deepest relationship that we can have is with ourselves. And when we can truly love all the spaces and places of our being, all of our insecurities, all of those dark places, all of our shadows, then we can really illuminate the rest of our life. We can accept who we are. It's not about necessarily pushing away the darkness, it's about embracing it as part of who we are and loving yourselves anyway, loving yourselves for all of your flaws, all of your imperfections, and saying fully a yes to you, knowing that you are created in this divine source energy. And with that, you're worthy. You're worthy to be fully loved and embraced for who you are. I'm here from sunny Florida. It's actually kind of cloudy today, but it was amazing yesterday. We had a beautiful mid 80-degree weather. The sun was like kissing my skin. It was so lovely to be out and about. We were at this small little lake. Like to me, it felt more like a pond because I'm from Bozeman, Montana, but it was where like the we had this drum circle going and the drumming was happening that really felt very earthy, and I was dancing barefoot, and there was this beautiful breeze and the sunshine was kissing my skin, and I was just like, and there was the lake, and I just felt like all four elements were completely playing in my energy. And so it was so lovely. Like, what a act of self-love just to recognize that you can be one with nature, you can be one with yourself, and really let go of any kind of monkey mind. And I think that's where a lot of this self-care starts, is that, and self-love is when we're recognizing that we're talking down about ourselves. Like we have this inherent voice in our head that oftentimes is caught up with our inner child wounds that we've experienced of negative self-talk, and that clutter in our mind of always constantly thinking and judging and betraying ourselves ultimately of our self-love that we're inherently worthy of. And so it's been really an interesting process over the many years of doing my self-healing work, of recognizing when those negative thought processes come in and being able to shut them down. We call that thought catching. And at Moon Rising, where we can recognize, having the awareness is always the first step of healing, and being able to have that awareness that you are talking down on yourself. Is this the way you would talk to a child or your best friend? If the answer is no, then we need to kind of be able to catch those thoughts and give our bodies, our minds, something else to appreciate, right? So if we can turn those around, that's a really great first step of acting in a way of self-love. So for this post Valentine's Day, I would love to know what your self-talk is like, what you are choosing to say yes to. What's one thing you can say to yourself that's going to light you up, that's going to make you feel like you're in an expansive energy. And let's start with that. Like oftentimes, the very beginning of the day, I used to get on my phone and instantly start scrolling, checking messages, checking email. And that energy of I've got things to do, and the very start of the morning was dysregulating. It would help me, it would encourage my energy to get into a flow of go, do, must, should. And oftentimes, when I actively started my day with something else, a morning meditation, some morning movement, listening to my morning gratitude playlist, like those things help me go, everything is in flow. I'm in flow with the divine, I'm in flow with the universe. And how can I increase that? How can I invite more of that in? Because when we are out of alignment, then it feels like we're working and operating from our logical mind. And our logical mind is where all those shoulds come in, and we're playing on the autopilot of our subconscious, and that can be a struggle. Whereas oftentimes my work day might not look like the average person's work day, because it's like, well, do I feel good? Why would I work if I don't feel good? Because my work is my passion, right? Like, you guys are my passion. I love teaching. I love to be present with my community. And so if I'm in a go, 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 should, must energy, you're all going to feel that. Whereas if I show up in my alignment, my expansive energy, I love all of me, I love all of you, I can see myself and my divine light, and I can see you and your divine light, then you're going to radiate that, right? You're going to feel that. And I'm much more likely to put out content that's going to feel good rather than I have to or I should. This goes back to the be, do, have model. I'm going to be radiant. I'm going to be expressive. I'm going to be expansive. And then from that be place, I'm going to do the things, and then I'm going to have the abundance in my life, right? Whereas most people operate from a place of do, have, be model, where they have to do all of the things to get the stuff, and then they'll be happy, or then they'll be expansive. And it doesn't work that way. That's the way our culture and society has trained us. Like, do the work, get the house, get the job, get the car, get the stuff, and then you'll be happy. And it's the opposite is so true, much more truer, much more validating, to go, I'm going to embody happiness, I'm going to embody joy, I'm going to embody expansiveness, I'm going to embody my fullness of who I am and all those aspects. And then from that place, I'm going to have the excitement, I'm going to have the connections, I'm going to have the experiences that I want. And then I get a and it comes later, right? Like, so recognizing which energy we're starting our day in is an act of self-love. And so for Valentine's Day, it's been a really interesting journey. If you're following me on Facebook, if you're following me on Instagram, which I highly recommend, go over to Moon Rising Shamanic Institute. You can follow me on my personal fan page on Facebook if you'd like. It's just Christine Renee. And over the last probably like 2 months now, you can really see the self-love journey that unfolded for myself. I had released a pretty heavy relationship, and really stepped into, I radically want to self-love me, because I recognize the places and spaces in that relationship highlighted my insecurities, because they were my insecurities, right? This is me taking radical responsibility of my own energy, of going, where do I not love myself, or am I making myself small, that needs to be fully loved on, so that I can be in my expansive state, so I can have a beautiful, healthy relationship, right? And so when we come to a place of recognizing it's time to radically step into self-responsibility, into self-love, into the fullness of who we are, things can start to shift. And so recognizing that there was a piece of this that was a releasing of, I needed to experience the emotional intensity. I needed to experience where those cords were, so that I could recognize them and release them, that I was shedding. Like, it was like a snake shedding old skin. And I love that during this time period, we also stepped into the Chinese New Year, the year of the snake. We went from moving from the dragon energy into the snake energy, and recognizing that as we move into the snake, this is the year for releasing, to letting go, and to fully feeling that Kundalini rising energy, that fullness of our energy potential. And what does that look like for us? What does that look like for you? Right. And so when we experience this recognition of, I'm shedding skin, I'm releasing, we can do it like baby steps. And for me, I'm one to dive full in. Like when I make an intention, I'm all the way there, and I want to be all the way there, because I don't see, for myself, now it might be different for you, like, but for me, it very much feels like, why wait? If I can recognize in my body and my experience of something that feels small or depleted, I want to lean in all of the way, to go, I don't want to drag this out. Like I remember being in Japan a few years ago, and I was with Hakutan Inamoto for a Reiki pilgrimage, and he's this 80 plus year old pure land Buddhist monk who is a Reiki master, and has been practicing for decades upon decades. And someone in our tourist, our pilgrimage group asked him, how do you handle grief? And his response was so simple. His response was so that of a Buddhist monk that I cherished that wisdom. And he said, take 10 days. Don't let it go on beyond 10 days. Like experience the intensity of all of the emotion as deeply as you can for 10 days and then let it go. And that to me, that's extreme. But I can take the 21 days of feeling all of the deepest feelings and really let them to express and move through my body and let the waves come. Like I think oftentimes when we have really strong emotions, we think, okay, I did the thing, and now I should feel better. And it comes again and again and again, and it comes in waves, and each wave feels less. But then there could be a trigger that comes that shows up that makes a big tidal wave show up, right? And so how are we flowing through our emotions with the intention of letting them go, like giving yourself a container? And so for my experience, I really gave myself a container of 21 days, which I believe is where we can do our celestial work. When we're working in the fifth, sixth dimensional arena, it takes 21 days to really alchemize it and bring it into 3D reality. And so when we are working on this level of I'm doing all of this spiritual work, we need that integration period of really allowing it to come down into our physical reality. And so I had created some really beautiful boundaries in my life to honor the 21 days of my radical self-care journey. And that container, there was times that that 21 day boundary was broken and it was triggering, and then having to reaffirm boundary again. This is my boundary. I'm not available for this conversation, this interaction, whatever it may be. And so that part of that is self-love. Like we need to know when we are in alignment to have flexible boundaries, and when it's no, this is a firm boundary. I'm not open to allowing this energy in right now. I'm holding this as a sacred container for my work. And so that in and of itself was a really good lesson of like, okay, this energy came in, but this is my sacred space. I don't want this. This isn't okay. And to be able to recognize that, oh, that's a boundary I'd set and they crossed it. Right. And so reaffirming, clearing out, resetting those boundaries is a really important practice. So recognizing the people in your life that are honoring your boundaries, reflecting back, like I see your boundaries, I'm respecting your boundaries. Let me know how this feels as we navigate this, that you're in your ceremonial space. And the most important people in my life that I reached out to when this was going on really was like, Christine, that was crossing a boundary. You set the boundary, they crossed it. Like, what are you going to do? Right. And so it was really lovely to have people in my life that were respecting my boundaries, honoring my boundaries, and affirming my boundaries. And so when we are entering into a dedicated time frame of our self-love, it's amazing to go, what feels good today? What do I need to do today to love myself more? And to really give permission to do it fully. And, I feel at the same time just immensely grateful for the work that I do, the container that I have, my home life, where if I want to go do an hour-long ceremony, I can. Like I have the capacity. I don't have toddlers in my house right now. I have a teenager, but like he's very self-sufficient. I've got a preteen who, is very honoring, and oftentimes will do these activities with me. If I say I'm going to be making a yoni steam bath and I need to pick out herbs, she'll be like, she'll get on her witchy attitude and be like, yeah, let's pick out some herbs for your yoni. Like she get really into it. So I'm really blessed that like my home container in and of itself is really supportive for this work. And then my closest friends and family are also really honoring of this work. And so recognizing and honoring like those people in your life that will hold you up is super important to the process, and just witnessing that you can have that level of gratitude for the people in your life, so that when you go into these sacred ceremonies, you know that the boundary of the ceremony itself will be honored and respected. So if I'm doing an emotional release exercise, or if I'm doing a yoni steam, or if I'm doing a home energy clearing, or whatever it may be, that space in which I'm entering into to do that type of work is going to be honored and respected and not interrupted, right? So how can you feel into your self-love practices and going, here's the container, this is what I need. I need privacy, I need space, I need integration time afterwards, I need it to be quiet. What is it that you can express and vocalize to to really show people, this is what my desire is, this is what my fears are, this is what my boundaries are. Like, though that container is really important to the process. So know that even though I might have a list of things that I, quote unquote, completed over my 21 days, it doesn't necessarily need to look like yours. And it was done with such intention. And every day I wasn't really sure what the energy was going to call for. So I might start out my day with a tuning in of sorts, a calling in my guides, my support team, my helpers, and then feeling in what is today asking for. And so part of the process is slowing down enough to ask those questions. Like, how are we honoring, recognizing, what do I need today? Some days I was like, I need the Epsom salt baths. And I think it's so funny that so often we see on social media that a bath and chocolate cake isn't self-care or self-love. And I'm like, it absolutely can be. It might not be that every single day, but it can definitely be part of the process of just nourishing your body with foods that it enjoys, and taking the time to relax and let your nervous system regulate to a point where you're feeling supported, right? So oftentimes it's really interesting to watch what your nervous system is doing through this process, because as you step into, like for myself, a 21-day container of radical self-love, it was so much about bringing my nervous system back into balance. And I had been experiencing primal panic, which is basically when your nervous system thinks that it's under severe attack. Like, there's the level of anxiety, the overwhelm, the panic attacks. Like, it was every time I try to lie down, my nervous system was so dysregulated. Like, my heart would start racing, my breath would quicken, and it felt like I was about to have a panic attack. And that went on for a few weeks prior to me entering into, okay, it's time. This is really, I'm beyond time. Like, I've waited too long to do it, which is really what created me to say yes fully to me. Like, I wanted to go all the way into the self-love process of and that's why I use the term radical. Like, it wasn't just, okay, I'm gonna do a bath every once in a while, and maybe, do some incense and journaling. Like, it was way beyond that, because I wanted a radical shift. I wanted a radical shift in my energy. I wanted a radical healing for my nervous system, my emotions, and to really find a place and space within myself of saying yes to love fully and completely, right? And so when we know that we are divinely worthy of the time, the energy that it takes to do this type of work, you're showering yourself in this awareness that you are divine, you are worthy of being embraced in this way, and that it becomes a co-collaborative process with a higher source, with divine intelligence. And that's why it doesn't necessarily need to be mapped out day by day for 21 days. Like, if that's going to help your nervous system, yeah, lean into it. And there's also times and places and spaces, which I really enjoy, of not having a standardized procedure of what self love looks like. It can be different every single day, and recognizing what pushes in on those boundaries and what pushes in on your life of going, is this making me feel contracted? Like, am I going in small, or is this making me feel expansive? And that contraction needs energy to match it. Like, I really found like the more I felt like days in which I wanted to turn internal and go really small and make be small and feel small, was when I needed to choose something even more radical, like an emotional release exercise. So you're probably thinking, what the heck is that, Christine? So an emotional release exercise ceremony is when there is a somatic intention to release the emotions out of your body. And so I do a 7-set series of different exercises to really engage the emotions of anger, of sadness, of anything that feels stuck within your body, to release it. So there's a screaming exercises, there's a stomping and punching exercise, there's a thrusting exercise, and that really helps release any stagnant sexual energy or sexual trauma energy. There's a tantrum, like, talk about your inner child really being able to be witnessed, because a toddler, they have no filter on appropriate behavior, and when they're two, right? Like, so if they have an emotion, they fully express it through their body, and then an instant later they can be laughing and giggling again because they processed whatever was heavy for them. And so by doing this emotional release ceremony, you're embodying that energy of, I'm going to take whatever is going on in me and fully expressing it. I'm going to be flailing around on the floor, screaming if I need to, yelling, pounding, whatever it may be. And it's an opportunity for any of that emotion that's been stagnant or held on tight to fully escape, fully release. And so by doing this, you're allowing your body and its nervous system to have an exit strategy of some of that tense energy, so that you can come back into balance. So the aftercare is super important. So if you're screaming and yelling and stomping and like having these big physical body processes, the aftercare is important. So is the beginning care, like going into it with intention, going into it with this container of like, I not to be disturbed, to like let the process be, because it's a loud process. Like, I'm really glad that I have really good insulation in my walls because my neighbors didn't hear me, right? And then the aftercare is really being gentle on yourself, holding yourself, hugging yourself, loving on yourself, having good, healthy nourishment, drinking the tea. I've seen and witnessed people do this exercise where they completely lose their voice for days at a time, because it depends on what's going on, what's being held in your system, to fully let it go, fully release it, and then come into a place of gentleness. And what does that look like for you? How can you hold yourself? Maybe this is when the Epsom salt bath is going to be super important, because you're going in to energetically cleanse off anything that came to the surface that needed to be released in a different way, right? This is also a really great time to step into doing your smudging or your home energy clearing, like really give the space Reiki and let anything that came up and released into the space, send it down into the earth, because Mother Gaia can transmute it. She can alchemize it. She can transform it into like compost so that it's nourishing for the land again, right? And so how we step into these really intense practices can, one, be really significantly profound and move that energy through in a radical way. And then we have this moment of, what do I need for aftercare? What does that look like? And it might be that someone in your life wants to come in and hold you, witness you in this. And that vulnerability feels supportive, then fantastic, right? So it's recognizing how we are doing the process, and yet we're not doing it alone. So much of our self-love care can be the acceptance of love from others and being held and witnessed and loved on, so that it enhances the process, right? And so just because you might be doing some of these exercises solo. Doesn't mean that you need to say no to love in your life. If it's there, it's about saying yes to the love in your life, yes to the support, yes to the friendships, yes to the romance, whatever it may be, so that you are really being fully honored and witnessed for all of who you are. And that's part of this, part of like being able to say, this is what I need. This is what I need to fully release something from the past so that I can be fully in more of my own energy. So one of the things that through this process, I made this kind of understanding with the divine when I entered into it. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what is going to come up in this process. I know the intention behind it is for healing so I could prepare my energy for the next best thing in my life, right? Like I knew that I was wanting to do it ultimately for me and also to be able to attract and love in, right? Like, because we can only love to the availability that we love ourselves. Like there's a real clear match. And if you have insecurities, if you have doubts, you're going to have relationships in your life that will mirror those back to you. So, what if we all loved ourselves so much so that you can really experience love on a new level, right? And so, when I entered into this with the intention of deep, radical self love and deep, radical self healing, in a profound way. I wanted to go into, it felt like going into the cat, like a catalyst. Like I was able to go into a cocoon, that's the container, to become the mush so that I could come out as the butterfly on the other end, right? Like that symbology really resonated for my 21-day experience. And so having that connection with divine throughout, going, what do I need to do today? What would feel good? What would be the most effective in my healing process? And letting it show up, letting whatever answer was there for me show up. And I'm one who has a ton of tools in my toolbox. Like this is something I've cultivated over years of my business and Reiki practice and shamanic tools. And so just because we have the tools in the toolbox, how often do we pull them out in a very significant, intentional way, right? And so I know that most of our listeners have tools in their toolbox, but are you utilizing them in a significant way, right? And so this is an invitation to recognize, like, these are all of the things that I have access to. There was things that I did over my 21 days that I haven't done in years. Like I haven't done a money date in years. I never had done a yogi steam before. Like there was things that came to me. It was like, oh, I need to do that. Okay, I've never done a yoni steam, but I know that's what my body is craving. My my sensual self, my uterus, my reproductive organs, my yoni wants to be energetically fully loved and supported and clean, right? And so knowing that, like, there were days that I would come into this going like, okay, this is what's coming forward. I wonder how to do it. Like I can ask my colleagues, I can ask the people in my life that have this as part of their practice and lean into it. Like, is this something that I have the capacity to do on my own or do I need support? And for me, it was like, oh yeah, guess what? My herbal cabinet is pretty extensive. I probably have a lot of these herbs that I need to do a yoni steam. And it was really great. It was like, oh yeah, I have calendula and I have nettles and I have chamomile. I have all these different kinds of herbs. I have rose petals. Like I have the things. I had mugwort. There's definitely pieces, and I was able to pull up. Here's what different kinds of herbs that you can use for different intentions, like whether it's nourishment or whether it's moisturizing or whether it's cleansing. Like there's all these different herbs, and I was able to be like, yeah, here's the ones that I really am called to. Let my ancestors really choose which ones and how much. Like I did it from a very intuitive and trusting space because I have that when I'm in this kind of container, I have that flow with the divine of going, yeah, let's do a little bit more of this, or let's try this one in here, and let's not make it complicated. So I just put it in a big bowl, put the water on it, wait till it cooled down just enough so I wouldn't burn myself. And then I just sat over it. I didn't need to get a special stool or like there's so many ways that we can complicate these practices by thinking that we need certain things versus what if the intention is good enough? What if I just trust that I'll know how much or how long? And when I feel complete, I'm complete, right? And so it's about trusting yourself and trusting the process and knowing that you're in a collaboration with the divine, right? And so how does it feel for you? What feels good today? And so the things that I really were doing on a regular basis, I was regularly doing chakra spinning. Now, if you haven't heard of that yet, know that a few weeks ago we did put out a podcast, and it was originally a live. The video is up on YouTube on how to do chakra spinning for yourself as an act of self-love. And it's a really profound technique because you can feel the difference day to day. And when we can gently encourage the flow of our chakra system in our bodies, it does regulate, it does come into balance. And what you can notice is like, oh, there is something there. There is something stuck. It's not moving. What do I need to do to pull this out and release it? And so you can gently feel into it and release. Cord cutting was another big one. So as I'm chakra spinning, I'm also energetically scanning over my body, noticing what cords are there, what needs to be unplugged and plugged into the divine. So meaning like if there's a cord, I may not be cutting it off. Sometimes I was, but other times it's just a gentle unplug and giving that to the divine source energy. So the person that it's attached to is receiving energy, just not from me. Like I'm done. I'm no longer attached, available for this energy. I completely release and forgive it. Let them receive from a higher source, not from me, because I'm no longer available for that type of connection. Right. So there's this energetic separation that was happening. I was doing a lot of yoni yoga for a very similar intention as the yoni steams, where they're with the yoni yoga practice that I do. It's very much moving and connecting your root chakra down into the center of the earth, so that there's a release, like there is an exit strategy of your energy, especially for the femininity, for your yoni, that space within us that can release down into the earth. And so that Mother Gaia knows what to do with it. So I was doing this practice with a yoni egg. So if you've never heard of those, it's a crystal that's shaped like an egg that you put internally for us ladies out there. And it's set with intention. And it also allows you to energetically spiral your energy around the egg so that you can enhance the practice, is really what you're doing. So the moving your energy down, root chakra connection down into the earth, release, 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 and then also receiving the gifts of the earth, receiving the gifts of Pachamama. So you're bringing up and utilizing that yoni egg with a Kegel exercise, if you will. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but you're inviting and bringing in and breathing up the energy of the earth so that it can move into that sacral chakra space, into your womb space, and know that it can feed you. So when we bring it up, you can also utilize the Kundalini rising energy to move throughout your body. So where does that energy need to go? How easy does it flow? Where does it get caught and stuck? Which will then bring awareness to what you need to release still, like what areas of your body is still struggling, so that you can release it. And so that was a really lovely practice I did numerous times a week. It feels good. It feels really amazing. And part of it is that when you are connected with the earth in such a strong way on a regular basis, it feels like this is your GPS system. It's not your head any longer. It's like the earth is telling me what my body needs. And this is how I'm making my decisions, is from this space in which my yoni is communicating with me, my heart is communicating with me, and my mind can be set aside so that I know how to live life to its fullest capacity. How am I saying yes to opportunities of love and life and expression and openness, right? Versus the mind that is so based on the data of the past and to predict what will happen in the future, which may not be accurate, right? And so other practices that I did were egg cleanses. Now that was something I definitely needed to lean in on for Chantel. So she walked me through the process. It's a very powerful practice. And for me, it was a way to once again release and let go. And I wasn't so much on interested in the divination side of it. It was really a release exercise. So lots and lots of release exercises. There was home energy clearings throughout my 21 days to really recognize the energy of my home oftentimes is a reflection of what I've been in the past. So how things are flowing in my house, how's the clutter in my house, is there dishes stacking up? Is there things that feel heavy? Do I have excess clothes or excess junk that just needs to be released and let go of? And it was interesting in this process, I was finding items from that previous relationship that were heavy, that were really negative. I feel like some of the last things I received had negative entity attachments to it. And I was like, there's negative entities in my wall. And when I can finally slow down and recognize, I'm like, oh, damn, it was that. I didn't energetically clean these antiques and I need to clear them off. And so having the home energy clearings be part of the process was really important because how do you feel good in a messy home? Do you feel good when it's super cluttered? And so every once in a while, I have to do this like full on spring energy cleaning, because it makes my energy feel better. I feel more calm when my space is calm, right? And so that was part of my radical self-healing, was really understanding that I am worthy to take the time and worthy of having a clean house, right? So feeling into what do you want? How do you want to feel? What makes you feel expansive and expressive? I did some numerous healing altars that I would work through. And so that's something that we teach in our Soul Rising program. I did divine feminine and masculine date nights. So this is really where you're stepping into, like, if I could recognize within myself who is my divine masculine, my sacred masculine, who's my divine feminine, how would they want to be treated? What do they want to eat? How do they want to be touched? How do they want to be recognized, supported, loved on? And giving space to recognize both of those aspects. So allowing the divine feminine to treat the divine masculine and the divine masculine to treat the divine feminine, like having those sacred containers once again to love yourself fully in this way can be really amazing. Yeah. And of course, there was plenty of Reiki sessions and shamanic journeying and dancing along the way. Why? Because it feels expansive, like all of these things of getting in touch with our guides, connecting with nature, doing our own energy healing work, taking the time to do these types of practices is huge. And so I have a very normal few-minute practice every night of doing Reiki. I bring my hands to Gasho, I chant the Gokai, I do the dry breathing, brush off the day, and then come into my Reiki practice. Now, in my Reiki practice, it's not like a lot of people think that it needs to be an hour long. It needs to be this big, extensive thing. And at the same time, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. And the fact that we have Reiki guides, we have deities that would be happy to support us while we sleep. And so what if when we do our Reiki practice at night to go continue the session, continue the healing process? And I love that. It's one of my favorite Reiki hacks, is that we don't necessarily need to be in it for the whole time. Sometimes that feels great, especially if we're doing chakra spinning and we're recognizing where our energy is at, and maybe doing some journal prompts while we're at it. Like, you can make it a process, you can make it a ceremony. And what if when we don't have enough time, just to ask our guides for help? And I think that's a note that I want to land on for as we wrap up this conversation, is asking for help is huge. Whether that is for our spirit guides, like those in the celestial realms. And it's also important to ask for help and support from our friends, our family, our guides in this present life of going, what do I need? How can I express? I would really appreciate it if you held me, honored me, gave me reassurance, like whatever it may be, like having that in the real life, tangible world is amazing. If you have those types of people in your life to lean on and they recognize that you're in a container, how much more could that be supportive, impactful if you say yes to it? So there's that balance of yes, we're connecting with divine, we're connecting with our guides, we're connecting with our celestial support team, and we're also very much in our bodies and in this earthly process and being able to express ourselves and what we need and what we want, what we desire, and what we're afraid of, so that we can really have that nourishment coming in from both the heavenly realms and from the life in which we live, right? And so, it can be as simple as I was taking naps all the time. Like so much of this energetic processing work took a lot of energy. And so oftentimes I was tired. And so saying yes to a nap was a form of radical self-love. And so oftentimes it was like my daughter would come home from school and I would like, can you please watch her after school cartoons on the television instead of her iPad? Why? So I could cuddle up against her and take a nap for an hour. Like that for me was a beautiful part of the process of going, she's great. She's doing fine. Like she doesn't need anything from me. She's got her snack. She's chilling out. And yet I can be there and like sleep and know that it was just a lovely supportive space. Right. So I think oftentimes when we look at like, okay, I want to do this, I do a radical thing, it feels intimidating. And what if it wasn't? What if you found the places and spaces in your life to say yes to you? And how can you say, I'm worthy to carve out the time, the space to do these things? I think that's oftentimes people will love to support us, but we have to communicate the desire and communicate the boundary, right? Like, I'm doing this for myself. I need support. Would you be willing to give me an hour every night so I can take care of myself? Or maybe it's 15 minutes, whatever it may be. But it's also holding yourself to it. Like I think so much of oftentimes it's that wavering self boundaries that we have, like, well, maybe I can skip a day, or maybe I won't do anything, and it's like, no, like if you're in it, do it all the way, do it radically, because your energy system will reflect that and your life will unfold in a way that reflects that, right? And so the more that we can say yes to your self-love, for this radical self-affirmation of that you are worthy, that you are divine, that you can embody love in a new way, your relationships, your life, your career, all of those things are going to become more expansive as well. And so I feel like I've had this flavor for years, but this is the first time I really stepped into my own radical container, and it was so worth it. It was so worth it. And that's why I'm offering support for others who need it, who want the accountability, who want the step-by-step processes, who want the support from another to help hold them accountable. So I'm offering a 21-day self-love container that will include 3 sessions and a personalized self-love care plan and accountability along the way. So that's messaging back and forth throughout the 21 days to help you say yes to you. So if you're interested in this program, it's $888. And I'm super excited because I've got a lot of tools in my toolbox and I have a lot of things that I would love to share. A lot of these are things that I have taught for years and years. And coaching has always come very naturally for me. I'm certified in, I don't know, like 6 different types of modalities since 2020. And coaching is one of my favorite ways to offer so much love to the world, of like helping you help yourself, helping you see your divine worth, helping you recognize that you are worthy to be an expansive person. So I love that. I love that. So if you're interested, feel free to DM me, email me, do whatever you need to do to reach out and we can talk details. And for that, I just am wishing everyone, may the whispers of wisdom rise from within and invite you into this beautiful container of self love.